Hi, this is Michael Waits, and welcome back to the Asia InsurTech podcast. We are joined today by Satishwar Balakrishnan, the Managing Director and CEO at Bandhan Life Insurance. Thank you so much for coming back to the show. As we were just discussing, a lot of stuff has changed since the last time you and I talked to each other. How are you doing, by the way?
I'm doing wonderfully well, and thank you for having me back, Michael. Yes, a lot has changed, and it has been some major journeys. I still remember our last discussions, and we were talking about how digital is changing a lot of things. And at that point in time, we were Aegon Life, and now we are Bandhan Life. There has been a shareholder change. But coming back to our core topic, at that time we were saying how digital can make a lot of changes, right? And by the time when we are meeting now, the digital has actually moved a lot in terms of the Gen AI, right? A lot of these pieces have also come in. So it's not just digital. We were always saying data and digital as our core strategy. But the data itself over the last 2 to 3 years has kind of evolved a lot, right? It was not just a fancy thing, but it's now practically being part of anything and everything you're going to do, right? And it's across industries that is coming, and the insurance naturally can't be left behind. So yes, a lot is getting changed.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how, because you brought up Gen AI, and I'll tell you, if I think about like an insurance company, I don't think a lot about generative AI. I think about AI a lot, but I'm curious about how, and talk about as many different places as you want, but where is a company like Bandhan Life using generative AI in particular parts of its businesses, and how is it impacting how those things are run?
So let me put it this way. You know that insurance is a little complicated product to sell, right?
Yeah.
And it also still needs a lot of handholding. So we basically call it as a push product. But by push, I mean it needs an advisory, right? You need somebody who understands these nuances to speak to the customer, right? Which also means that you need a lot of field force to understand these nuances, right? And then for these field force to kind of understand those complexities and convey that back to the customer in a much more simplified way, right? And what we strongly believe is when you train somebody, you can train on some specific propositions, right? So then what it becomes is the seller is actually making a pitch which he is good at, right? And it is not getting customized or personalized to what the customer needs or what the customer will be able to easily understand, right? And this is where I believe Gen AI can play a huge role. So what we are basically talking about a co-assist using Gen AI. I'm not suggesting that it's the Gen AI tool which itself will start doing the advisory, but it will enable, especially for a complicated product like insurance, it will enable my advisors to actually customize their explanations, their propositions to the customer, or rather, more than customize, it actually personalizes. So it will, the agent or the frontline sales guy or the advisor, I think that's a better term,
Yep.
will actually speak to Michael as Michael, right? So if that advisor is speaking to me, he might have a very different language. And if he's speaking to Michael, then it's a different language. And this can be very well aided by the Gen AI tool. So and this is where I'm seeing across all the functions within life insurance where Gen AI can play a role. For example, let's look at customer service,
Please.
right? So customer service, I am expecting my productivity to go up multifolds, not just 2x. It should go much, much better because even by the time say you are calling and with the tools around, I exactly know that Michael is calling me. But the Gen AI tool has actually read my entire history with you, and it very well knows why you're calling in all probability, right? Because you can actually figure out whether your due date is closer or
Right.
you're just gonna follow up on one of your queries or whatever, right? So which enables me as an agent taking that call to kind of entertain or address your needs in a very quick and faster way, right? Again, it also tells me in terms of what is the next probable thing that you're going to ask, and again enables me to respond to you in such a way that it's a first time resolution, right? It's over the counter resolution, which should go up. And that should help my productivity go up multiple way. I'm assuming these are the kind of examples which I'm expecting to happen in every aspects of the life insurance business.
So are you imagining a situation where, because I want to talk about how that gets affected as well, right? Because there has to be some internal training, but I want to talk about that in a bit. Are you imagining a situation where I'm an existing customer, let's say I have a renewal coming up. Your database knows obviously that my renewal is coming up. I call my advisor and the advisor says, "Hi, Michael, how are you? You're calling me from Bangkok or whatever city you live in. It's great to talk to you again. You're probably calling about your renewal, aren't you?" And it sounds like magic to me. So I'm like, "Oh my God, my sales guy is super smart." And then you say, "But you know what? I've noticed that now you're over 50. And as I look through your policy, I'm not really looking through it, the generative AI is looking through it. I noticed that you don't have coverage for this or you need coverage for that." And I just have this whole discussion that's being led by the Gen AI because it knows things that I, as a salesperson, don't know. And then again, it looks like magic to the customer because the customer's thinking, he wasn't this smart the last time I talked to him, kind of thing. But then he can give way better customer service, but also make better recommendations, be better at advisory in real time. And I'm presuming that if I ask a question like, what is the impact on my premium if I remove this and add these two things during my renewal process, that guy doesn't have to go away for 2 hours to figure it out because the generative AI is listening to it and just recalculates in real time. And I can say, I would estimate it's going to be around there. And again, it looks like magic. Is that the type of flow you're thinking about?
Absolutely. So in fact, it's to be let's put it this way.
Go ahead.
This call that you're having with the agent, it's
Yep.
actually a call between three of us, right? So it's the customer, the agent, and the AI tool which is sitting on this one. So it's not I as an agent who needs to translate, because even now it has, and in India we have this language piece which we are still trying to solve for, because it's not just one language, right? For example, we in India we actually speak a language called as Hinglish, which is a combination of Hindi and English. And in fact, within that we have a lot of other regional languages, right? We have Bangla, we have Tamil, various other languages. So it's a combination, and we as humans are able to kind of address that or understand that. That's the development which is currently happening. I actually saw some demos where this English itself has been cracked, right? So it's amazing in the sense, because it's the system which itself is learning. And so that's I strongly believe, it's, as I said, it's a conference call between the three of us, right? And it's a real time processing. I as an agent don't have to input it to get those results, but it
Right.
is
That's my
able to
point.
kind of take it, convert it into from a natural language processing perspective, right? Using NLP, and then coming back with saying, okay, this is what the answer is. Uh, so it's the possibilities are huge and the possibilities are immense, uh, and it's allowing me to scale up in a much better way without actually having to uh, making me much more productive.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about what it does to job roles internally? Right. Because I can also see situations where even if there's no customer involved, if I have a task that I have to do, or if I'm having a conversation with you in a meeting, we can not resolve a problem, but we can understand better like a solution to something that we've been trying to fix or whatever it is by, again, being on a little bit of a conference call, I'm guessing, with the generative AI internally. Is there a way to do that as well? Do you know what I mean? Where there's no customer involved, but you and I are sitting there having a conversation. How should we do this? What should this look like? I have this product idea. And the AI is listening in and then helping to create all of those things that we're talking about and help solving those issues.
Yeah, that's actually a wonderful idea. As of now, we have been all majorly discussing the external part of it. Uh, it definitely can, right? And you're actually giving me a wonderful use case to try out,
Yeah,
right?
why not? And
So
that's for free, by the way. There's no charge for that.
thank you very much. I'll definitely in our next
I'm
call bring
kidding.
that out, that saying how I used your suggestion and how it's helping me. But it's definitely a possibility, right? Rather than doing it as a separate activity, you can actually make him as one of the invitees, For us, anyways,
Yeah.
for us, it becomes much more easier because we are a work from anywhere organization, right? We still continue to be a work from
Right.
anywhere organization. So a lot of our meetings actually happen over a Teams call, right? So that kind of helps to actually have. In fact, we have already started using a tool to generate the minutes of those meetings,
Right.
right? So the minute, and which is very common, which is not very unique to us. So you would have actually seen that. So we have already started inviting an AI tool into this meeting. So basically takes up the minutes and kind of concludes it in a much wonderful. In fact, I was very surprised. This it is so smart that what we have is, say I am attending from a meeting room, and in that meeting room there are three of us. So we don't have separate logins, right? We have all logged in as one. We have logged in as meeting room number one. So let's call it that way. But when the
Right.
minutes came out, it was actually able to spell out that Satish spoke this, right? So there is no
Really?
ID of Satish in that call, but it came out, and the minutes specifically brought out that Satish said this and say Kamlesh said this. We both were not logged in.
Right.
We actually attended that call through a meeting room. That was amazing.
That is
In the
amazing.
sense, how did it even identify me as Satishwar? So it's kind of uh, it definitely is a lot intelligent.
Yeah, it sounds
So
like
what you're
it.
saying
I just think
definitely is
that,
a possibility. I think we will definitely try that out.
yeah, and it just popped into my head. I'm like, there's all this external facing stuff, which is great. But I remember because I'm old enough to have seen a bunch of different technology cycles, right? And I remember when we first started connecting our computers, like
Hmm.
literally not having to send files from one place, like from Tokyo to London, but they were just like on a server and someone could just access it. And it made us so much more productive. Nobody had to wait for me to send them that thing. They could just access it. Right. And then when we started having machines at home that could then connect back into the office, when we had two 64K circuits at home, that changed the way we worked. But one of the myths about technology, and I think this is worth discussing a little bit, is that, oh, once that gets deployed, it's going to replace humans. You actually said it earlier. It's not going to replace the advisor. It's just going to be like a co-pilot with the advisor. Isn't this the myth, though, that big technology replaces humans when in fact it almost never does? It just makes humans way more productive and frees them up to do either more productive things or just more fun things, if that makes sense, right? Because it gives you more free time. Do you think that's fair?
So I think you answered it yourself when you started this part, right? When you spoke about you've seen through those technology cycles, right? And you have experienced post the change how productive we have become, how fast we have become. And this is
Yeah.
where I strongly believe that the human race in itself wants to do a lot. So whenever the industrial revolution happened, right, we
Yeah.
basically moved into different one, and our ability to consume is just unlimited. When I say consume, it's not say just the fruit,
I
but
understand.
so, and that is what I'm saying. So we always, there is a supply side issue. There is never a demand side issue, right?
Right.
The moment
Right.
I am ready to give more, there are more than enough people to consume it, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and if you actually notice the growth from a human race perspective has been linear, and then you will see a step growth. Now these are those revolutions, the industrial revolution or the computerization, right? Now this I believe is the next that big revolution. It will basically, rather than growing linearly, will take a leap. Naturally there is a change management angle, which will have its what do you say, disturbances, but it only takes us to a next big level. Because see, from a human perspective, finally, if everything is done by machines, right, you still need consumers, and consumers are going to be human. And for human to consume, he needs that money, right? And in case if you're saying that we don't need it, then it's a wonderful life. I'm going to chill and then enjoy, because you finally need consumers. So there is one theory which says that it might move into a 3-day week or a 4-day week, right? I strongly believe it is basically there is still a lot to do. This whole space actually gives me, uh, I can actually have 10 Satish rather than one Satish, right? It gives
Yeah,
me
exactly.
immense productivity boost, so which helps me to catch up on a lot of things in a much faster way. So either ways, either get into a 3-day week, or I actually take a leap and look at a very new world altogether. In either ways, I think we are in a better space. So that's how I look at it. So I don't see jobs getting eliminated. Rather, the outcomes are going to be much, much better. That's what will take everybody's experience levels to a different level.
Yeah, I want to give another example and see what you think. When Lotus 123 and Microsoft Excel were first introduced, right? It just meant you could do math, simple math, much easier, also complicated math, much easier in a spreadsheet. You could save it, you could edit it, you could do all this stuff to it. And the big complaint at the time was it was going to put accountants out of jobs. And all it really did was make accountants way richer because they could do more tax returns in a shorter amount of time. And then you still needed more accountants because you needed more people to do more taxes. So that's just an example I like to give because I do think that while change management is really important, and I'm curious how you approach that as a firm, right? Because every time there are these big step changes in tech, it does require a mindset change internally. And there is always going to be a little bit of an element of fear of like, oh no, am I going to be okay? Kind of thing. And that's where but I agree with you. That step change is definitely worth making because once you get up here, all the new things you can do from a productivity level are value add and directly impact the bottom line. But I'm curious how that change management part of this is being approached.
No, it's talking. It's continuously talking, and it's basically, and we are currently at an evolution stage, right? From that perspective, I don't think people are very worried, especially within our organization. They definitely are not, because that's a comfort which I have to given them, saying either we will start doing a lot more, or we will go to a working week, which is much lesser, right? So those are the two possibilities that can happen because you still need people. You still need people who are working and earning to be consumers, which is not just for my organization. That's a universal truth. So that will continue. And the past, and those are the things that we can learn from the past. Every time these things have happened, there has been some kind of turbulence, right? But it actually has taken it to a different level. So we should rather try and be ahead of that rather than be hitting in that, getting stuck in that turbulence. Rather, let's take the lead if we can, right? And we can't actually come up with each one of them, but there can be some areas where I will take the lead, and there will be some areas where somebody else will take the lead, and we need to be kind of open to that, to adopt that, right? So, and then take the best stage forward. But that's how we have been talking and giving them the comfort or the uh, what do you say, confidence, and as well as the kind of a promise, saying your jobs are not at risk. But yes, you definitely need to now uh, encourage, or rather ensure that we understand how to use AI, right? Now that's the new skill set that we need to get into. And so from that perspective, you also need to have some knowledge of your domain, right? Because if you're still not very much, you can't expect that I don't know anything and still just using AI I will become say a super duper financial advisor. No, sorry, that's not the case.
No.
It actually helps you personalize it rather than replace you. So it enables you to be more productive and not replace you. It will always uh, current view. It's gonna always be your assistant, a very super
Yeah.
intelligent assistant.
Yeah, you're very intelligent. So can I ask you this? In the old days, right? Like again, when I first started working, the IT department felt like it was just on another planet. And bit by bit, it felt like the technology started migrating closer and closer to me and to my physical desk, such that I could do a lot of the work that the IT department used to do. They were doing plenty of other infrastructure and all this other work, right? So again, it freed them up as the tech became more user friendly. But I feel like the benefits of generative AI are dropping down directly to the individual worker as well, if that makes sense, right? Whereas before you'd have to call IT and go, can you make a report for me that shows me all this stuff, or talk to the guy in finance, and they'd have to do that. But now, since you can directly access databases using large language models and even specific large language models that are just, accessing data internally, I feel like it gives a ton of power more to the people sitting at the desk than they used to have. Does it also, so that's one thing. But the second thing, does it change the type of person you have to hire? Like, given the choice between somebody who really knows how to use tech super well, do you know what I mean? At the beginning. So it changes the hiring process as well, no?
more than hiring process, I am basically we are working towards enabling that as a skill set, right? Because everybody is learning, right? So to
Yeah.
expect that somebody is an expert and I can start using him that way and putting that as a criteria, I don't think
No
I'll
way.
be
Not
too early to
today.
do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather, we are using that opportunity saying you understand your domain pretty well, right? You understand your area of work very well. Can I actually then have uh, an AI assist available, which helps you improve your productivity, right? Immediately, we are not moving into a space saying that's the eligibility criteria. No, I think it's also our responsibility to ensure that our own people plus new people who are coming in, right? We bring that or we enable that skill set, right? We give them that opportunity to actually learn on the job on these lines, and that's how we are trying to do that. As far as and it's a matter of time. If you look at my kiddo, right, who will be the Gen Z, they will come equipped with it. They have started
Yeah.
doing their
Exactly.
homework using this, right?
Right.
So that's that. The projects for every project they have started using AI tools, which is not a good thing because that doesn't. It's too quick. So the effort to understand, I think that also helps you. What do you
Yeah.
say?
Research.
Improve your knowledge.
Research is a skill, right? Knowing how
Correct.
to find stuff is a skill too. So you're
Yeah.
losing a little bit of that. But yeah, you're right. If it's too easy, you're not learning as much as you possibly
True, but
can in that
the
situation.
answer that I got on that is why do I need that skill set? In the sense because it's a tool and this tool will continue. They will do it for me. So why do you want me to have that skill set? So it's like in my school days we used to learn mathematical tables, right?
Right.
And now with the calculators you can do it in a much easier. Calculators were then there too, but it helps at times. You don't always want to go and use a calculator.
Okay. So I'm gonna break the fourth wall here, and I'm gonna say this: if you don't know inherently that 7 times 6 is 42, then your brain is losing its ability to do math, and life is math. And if you can't just like walk around without a calculator for everything you need to do, and if you bump into your buddy and you just have left your phone at home, and they say like, hey man, I need to borrow $7 6 times, you have to know all this stuff. And I think
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the AI at work. Like, I'm not just saying this to make conversation, but it's the same thing at work. You need to understand the domain so then you can understand how to use the tool in a way that's most effective. Right.
exactly.
And if you don't know what it's doing in the background, which is why I think having a research skill is super important. Why do I need that skill? Because I need to know, first of all, if the information that I'm getting is good, and then I need to be able to confirm it somewhere else, and all these other little things that I need to think about. And if I lose the ability inside my brain to do that, both as an employee and as a manager, then no matter how much Gen AI I associate with anything, it's not going to be as powerful as it might be. And then the other guys and gals at competitors are going to be doing that better. That's where you're going to lose. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's my biggest worry. If you ask me what is the risk, right? Is
Yeah.
those aspect, which if it's all readily available, why should I even but to ask that question itself, you should be knowing about it. To that extent, understanding those basics are going to be very critical and that should continue.
Yeah. And also, again, from a product development standpoint, from a customer service standpoint, the more you know, the better you're going to be. And every now and then you may get a piece of information from technology, whether it's generative AI or any other kind of tech, and you think that can't be right.
Yeah.
It just can't be based on my experience. So if you don't have that, then you're going to be doing bad things both internally and for customers. And that's why you need to know what's going on. And that's part of the whole training process, I presume. Yeah.
Absolutely. It helps us personalize things, right?
Yeah.
It helps us process in a much faster way or super fast way. Right? A lot of data crunching, I think that can be handled in a much easier way. A lot of reading,
For sure.
if you have to do that kind of also, especially again to consumer specific space, it makes you productive. It doesn't replace you.
What do you think the broader impact is going to be on like the life insurance market in India?
We are in a unique position there, right? This, as you know, the opportunity size is huge in India, right?
Gigantic.
So
Yeah.
so that's where I'm saying we have been making uh, every stages that we have been doing, we have basically more or less tried to make us more productive to cater to a larger population. If you remember last time, we were actually trying to cater to a population which was not being catered to, right? Specifically the self-employed segment. As you know, for insurance purposes, for the purpose of underwriting, you normally need a lot of documentation to come through. And in that segment, the documentation was not that strong. So and using data again, we were able to come up with proxies, right? So not the conventional, say, an income tax return or your salary slips, but various other pieces. So those was, and which is not a 0-1 situation, but you actually get into a lot of data sources and then make sense out of it,
Right.
which allowed us to uh, cater to that specific population which was not being catered to. So there was a supply side issue, and the supply side issue was majorly more uh, the underwriting challenges with that specific segment. It is not that uh, that customer segment uh, was not in need of an insurance policy. It was more we were not able to underwrite it because we were not having a formal documentation there, right? With data, that thing has kind of helped us solve in a big way, right? So for instance, in the last 2 years that we have been selling, more than 60% of my business is actually coming from that segment, right? Conventionally, before that, I used to sell around 90% of my policies were coming from the salaried segment, right? Now it has majorly moved to more than 60% coming from the employed segment, right? Where the and without compromising on quality. So it has actually come through wonderfully well, which gives us, and now with further spaces, I can actually personalize it. I can actually go uh, a step further in terms of both underwriting as well as propositioning a product, right? And with this ability, I'm also now trying to figure out, can I work on a product also on these lines? So as of now, we have been working more towards underwriting and using analytics with Gen AI and further data processing capabilities. I'm actually trying to figure out whether products can also be more customized, not just the sales pitch. Can I have multiple versions? Because this now is giving me the ability, if you know product pricing in itself
Yeah.
uses a huge amount of data churning, right? And thereby you will want to kind of uh, keep it at certain slabs and levels. With this, can I get into even a product pricing, though the regulation itself doesn't allow that as of now? But if you give a proposition which also ensures that the customer is not being short charged, I think the regulator will also be open to it, right? So can I
Yeah.
actually personalize the pricing itself, right, at a product stage? Not just as need, moving to the next step of the product itself is very personalized. So that's another opportunity which also comes in with all these capabilities coming in.
And also, I want you to think about this with me for a second, right? Because you've just triggered something in my brain. I used to have a job for a long time. And because I woke up every day, went to work, got a monthly salary, got a bonus at the end of the year, I looked at the world in a very specific way, I feel like. But now that I've been self-employed, I look at the world in a completely different way. And I also look at money in a completely different way. And I think that because, we talked earlier about how the technology is getting closer and closer to the desk, but I also think the tech is getting closer and closer to individuals. And I think what it means is that your target market, those people that are self-employed, at least in my mind, and I'm curious what you think, is likely to grow as opposed to get smaller as people realize I don't need to necessarily, my only opportunity is not only to work for a big company, but I can build my own company or I can be self-employed. And as more and more people do that, you're going to need the ability at scale to do exactly what you were just describing. And that product mix that you have that has now went to 60-40 could go to 80-20, being also driven by the fact that people are choosing to be self-employed and enjoying the life that comes with that, but it's going to change the way you price stuff. Do you see that happening as well? Did that make sense?
No, it absolutely does. In fact, even before this whole, so if you would have noticed that, right? In India, there is this major startup boom,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
In fact, The government itself is also talking about promoting a lot of startups. There are schemes for them, right? So that is definitely a major change. India per se always had a huge amount of self-employed population, even earlier, right? But as I said, it was more a supply side issue. Now it's becoming a much bigger rage in terms of having your own setup. If I have some, like the way you moved, right? So you saw a specific strength of yours and you wanted to build on that, right? And you wanted to work for yourself. It is definitely happening. A lot of people, in fact, I'm seeing a lot of people who were in employment who left it and started on their own. It's a major setup, and in fact, it is also creating a lot of employment per se, right? Because a lot of establishments are coming on these lines, and it's working well. It's extremely working well. It's a big
Yeah.
wave.
But I also think, and again, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I also think in the old days, when the Indian economy was in more of a developmental stage, there were a lot of people that were self-employed because there was no other place to work. Right. But now that there are other places to work, I think people are making the reverse choice, as you said, and saying, I want to be self-employed for a bunch of different reasons. But just want to get it back to your product mix and also your product development, because now that you have the tools to be able to create product, because before you were kind of, not you, but like companies were kind of lost. They're like, I don't know how to price for that because everything they do is different from everything that everybody else does. And I wouldn't even know how to charge them for it. But now you can take their data, which looks like somebody else's data, even if it's not the same data as somebody who works at like ICICI. And I just picked a company that I know in India, right? And you can analyze it because it reflects that. And then you can price it because of that. And that's super cool. No?
Absolutely. In fact, you are right. Earlier, the profile of self-employed was very different, and
Yeah.
now the profile is much more enriched, right?
Right.
And you will actually see a lot of freelancers who are and they are kind of an expert in a very specific skill set, right? And I've seen this trend post COVID actually. So COVID allowed or basically brought this whole acceptance of working through a video conference, right? Which is enabling people to work from anywhere, in the country or in the world also, right? So there people have actually started taking this opportunity to work from various places. You don't have to come to a metro city for a specific skill set. These skill sets are available across the country, and what better than actually staying in the same town that I was always, right? You can, of course, go and travel the world, but you don't have to travel for the purpose of employment, right? Uh,
Right.
for us, like more than uh, from the time we started work from anywhere, we are based out of Bombay or Mumbai, uh, and only one third of the population is actually, and this is again from that time itself, are currently based out of Mumbai. The
Right.
rest are from various cities and a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities and wonderful talent, right? It's a good position. It's a win-win position for both the
For
organization
everybody.
as well as them. And we are also now started engaging a lot of freelancers from various places. In fact, it's becoming such that they are so popular that we chase them, right? Without,
Right.
and they
Right.
are also able to kind of create a market for themselves without not being in one of the metro cities. That's the change, and that acceptance has come in post COVID. So you don't have to do physically a face-to-face meeting to kind of sell your skills.
Right. I mean, in the old days, if you said you were a freelancer, it just meant you were unemployed. And now, if
Absolutely.
you're a freelancer, everybody's jealous. They're like, oh,
No,
shucks, I
true.
wish I could do that too.
Yeah.
And I'll leave you with this and I'll let you go because this has been an amazing conversation. We have a team that works with us of like, I don't know, 20 people that do our post production for all of the shows that we do. I've never met any of them. None of them are in Thailand. None of them. Anyway, so it fits in with exactly what you're saying, but all of them need life insurance. Do you know what I mean? So it's the same situation that you're seeing there in India. Anyway, this has
Yeah.
been amazing. I really hope you enjoyed yourself today. Is there anything else that you want to add or that we left out? This was really great.
No, it's uh, just a message saying from Bandhan Life perspective, we are trying to cater to a market which is which was not being catered to as of now. So we are solving
Yep.
for that supply side issue, right? We are still a digital organization, though we have got into multiple channels, right? But our customer focus still continues to be uh, the majority Indians, right? And not a very niche segment. And within that space is where we still believe agency, or rather uh, life insurance product, will still need an intermediation and advisory, right? And the way we are working is basically making the advisors or enabling the advisors to become more productive, right? Both in terms of earlier, if you remember in my last page, I was talking about two scenarios, right? One is convincing the customer to buy a life policy, and second was the entire paperwork required. So in
Right.
my earlier conversation, I used to always focus on saying we have solved for the second part, which is the
Right.
whole paperwork process, right? Making the partner productive in terms of at least not wasting too much time on those paperwork. Now, with this new technology coming in, we are talking about both. We are actually enabling with our sales these tools to actually, and these are again AI driven tools, which helps you to also proposition or convince the customer in a much better way. Which I
Right.
strongly believe that if I speak to an individual as that specific individual, which is personalized. So if I'm, for example, if I'm speaking to Michael as Michael, exactly figuring out what Michael needs, and in fact, or basically saying what Michael would appreciate more, or would understand and accept in a much better way, then the entire productivity goes up. So with these tools coming in, we are in the process of solving the other leg or the first leg of convincing the customer. That I believe will go a huge way in getting a lot of people who need life insurance now being catered to, and also convincing them. So you
Right.
will see penetration of life insurance in India going up in the coming years.
That's awesome. Satishwar Balakrishnan, the managing director and CEO of Bandhan Life Insurance, thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for all of your flexibility and kindness as well. Thank you again so much.
Thanks a lot, Michael. It was a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much.